Immediately recognisable in both looks and sound, Miriam Margolyes has maintained 2 successful careers in parallel, visible and invisible. We've seen her in parts from The Girls of Slender Means on TV, through Martin Scorsese's film The Age of Innocence, for which she won a BAFTA award, to Professor Sprout in the Harry Potter movies. We've heard her in numerous adverts and cartoon voice roles, including James and the Giant Peach and Babe. She also provided multiple looks and voices in a one-woman show, Dickens Women, which she's performed to acclaim around the world, including the UK and Australia, the 2 countries in which she lives. In the last few years, there's been a fashion in showbiz for abolishing the distinction between actors and actresses and calling men and women all actors. I'm always interested in where performers stand on this. Are you an actor or an actress?
I'm an actress.
Why do you prefer that?
I suppose it's because I'm what I'm used to, but I think it's a bit pretentious for everybody to be male.
Have you ever regretted becoming an actress? Have there been times when you felt you should have done something else or
Never.
could have done?
Never. I have never regretted it for 1 second. I've had a wonderful time, and I've given people a wonderful time too.
The periods of unemployment and insecurity are what a lot of people point to from outside the business. You presumably have had those. I mean, everyone has.
Oh, yes. Yes, I remember them very well, and I hope there won't be any coming up too, because as you get older, probably it's worse. But when I was starting, I sort of knew that I would get better and I'd get more work as I got older, and that's proved true. But there were great gaps in the beginning, and then I used to do market research and sold encyclopedias, that sort of thing. I wasn't really competent to do anything else.
But as we know, there are many people who go out of the profession or never really get into it. Were you always confident that it would work out in the end?
Do you know, I think I was. It's a bit shocking to have been so absurdly confident, but I really did feel that I had something to offer and that one day people would see it. And hopefully they have, because I have been working now for a long time.
You are, and generally you always have been, regarded as a character actress.
Quite rightly.
Supporting roles, often comic rather than the leads or heroines. Are you comfortable with that, or do you regret that we've never seen your Shakespeare's Juliet or Strindberg's Miss Julie?
I don't think I'd have been a very good Juliet. I might have been a Miss Julie. Actually, I played Kristen, the cook, in Miss Julie. But no, I am a character actress. I can see that. Doesn't mean that I can't do leads, and occasionally I get offered them. And I'm a lot better than some of the people that do leads. But I am a character actress, no doubt about that.
And why are you a character actress? What is it that, say, people would see you as the maid or the cook or the nurse rather than the central figure?
It's because I'm not beautiful. There is no other reason. I'm fat and not beautiful. And if you're fat and not beautiful, you can't play the sexual interest, because that's not the way people see women. You have to be physically attractive to be a leading lady. All the leading ladies are physically attractive. And actually, I'm getting more physically attractive as I get older, which is, maybe I shall have a sort of October romance. But I think that is the reason.
And you're admirably frank about that. Have you ever felt angry about that? Because there is that. Casting directors, they make huge assumptions based on people's height, weight, as the kind of thing they should play.
I suppose I felt angry sometimes, but not for very long, really. I feel anger only when I see people that aren't very good getting parts that they shouldn't have got. And that makes me angry. And there's no point, really, in being angry, because it doesn't make any difference. But I hope I do get some nice parts, even though I'm older.
But actually, which you've already alluded to, if you are a character actress, the advantage you have over the juvenile leads and the beautiful-looking young men and women is that the parts, they often get better as you get older. There are more of them.
No question about that, yes. And you get better at it, too. I've got much better recently than I used to be.
Are there roles that you regret not playing?
Yes, I think I would have liked to have done more Chekhov. I would have loved to have played Masha. And probably some Shakespeare. But that may still come. The thing is, you do need to be tall and beautiful for Shakespeare. And I never was. And never will be, probably. Not tall, anyway. But I hope there are still areas that I can explore. I don't want to feel that it's all just a tunnel now.
And one reason for doing a one-person show, such as Dickens's Women, is that de facto you are the lead, you are it. I mean, you are the... Well, was that one reason for doing it?
No, that wasn't a reason for doing it. It was never written as a one-person show. It was written for a two-person show, and I never want to do another one-person show. I keep getting offered them, but I don't want to do them because it's lonely. And I went into the business for social joy, working with other actors. That's what I like doing. And being on your own on the stage, it's all very well because you do get all the attention, but it's lonely. And I want to feel that interaction, which is what I long for. So although I'm very proud that Sonia Fraser and I achieved what we did with Dickens Women, I won't do it again.
But there must be a thrill in carrying a show like that, isn't there?
Oh, yes. Yes, there is. Because nobody will ever do it as well as I do it. I know that. And Dickens wrote so wonderfully for women and such sharp characterizations. And that's what I'm very good at. So I was able to show off gloriously, which after all is what acting is.
Do you have, it may clearly vary from role to role, but do you in general, do you have a theory of acting? When you're approaching a role, do you have a way in which you always approach it?
No, I don't, and I think I probably ought. I'm rather revealing myself to be a bit of a muffin at the moment, but I don't. I just read the script, and I read it over and over and over again, and then I think about my character, and I try and find things that I can seize on, and I work from there. I never went to drama school, you see, so I'm not really a trained talent at all. It's just instinctive. It's worked so far, but probably I should have had some kind of a method, but I never did.
But famously, those actors who they say they want to get the shoes right or they want to know exactly how the character looks. I mean, the broad division is people work externally or internally, but where on that would you be?
Well, it's not the shoes, for sure. I think it's the thoughts. It's what you think that changes your face and the way you walk. But the voice is very important. The voice has always been important for me. I started in radio, which was a wonderful way to start. I met terrific people, and I do focus on the voice a lot. But I think it's the thoughts you think that make your character. And so when for example, when I'm doing Dickens Women, people say, how do you manage to change character so quickly? It's because you think the thoughts, and that changes your face and everything.
But you have to say, you've got this famously versatile voice, which has done so many different things. In the way that a singer, an opera singer, almost has a map of their voice. They know where the notes are, and they know the range, and they know where it can go. Do you think of your voice in that way?
No. I don't think about it a lot. No, I just think, oh, well, it would be this kind of a voice, and then I do it. But I don't practice a lot. It just pops out.
But there is something musical about it, isn't there? I mean, you have to have that. You have to have an ear to do voices.
I've got a very good ear. I've got a brilliant ear. Probably the best ear in the business, I think. I don't think there's anyone can match me. I mean, maybe Rory Bremner. But you see, he's an impressionist, and I don't do that. I don't copy real people. I create a person and work from there. But I don't think I've got a musical voice. It's a light, pleasant voice, but I can change it, and that's the fun of it.
But as you say, you're not an impressionist. But if you're watching the Queen on TV or whatever, or
and I do watch Her Majesty on television.
But can you do anyone in the way that an impressionist can?
Not anyone. No, I don't think I can. But I can seize on a type or a region and work from that. I'm not a genius, but I'm very clever.
Even at this stage of the interview, you've made many confident statements about your
I know, that's because I'm terrified inside, because it's such a scary thing to be yourself. You have to create who you are and then be it, because it's a phony thing to have this deeper conversation. I don't know you, Mark. You don't know me. Why should I tell you about myself just for the camera? So I've got to invent a person, you see. That's the thing.
But are you naturally confident about your abilities?
Yes, I think I am quite. But I do have moments of desperate insecurity, like everybody does. And even now, when I go into a room and there's lots of people I don't know, or perhaps people I want to impress, I do feel a bit scared. I feel a bit nervous. Partly because I'm very, very short, and I'm always irritated because people say, "Oh, you're much shorter than I expected." And indeed, I am much shorter than most people expect. But, that's it. That's what I've got. So it's difficult to dominate when you're short. And I suppose that is what I want. I want to dominate.
How interesting.
Now I've told you a lot.
You've told me a great deal. You have. And in the way that many actors, they have roles that they walked away from. I mean, they're actors who leave during rehearsal or actually go through with the role but actually hate it and say, I was useless. Have you ever had that?
A couple of times. I was in a thing called The White Devil, the Webster.
John Webster, yeah.
A revenge tragedy. And I played Zanchi the Moor. And I've always called it Zanchi the Less, because I was dreadful in it, and I wish I'd never done it. And Glenda Jackson played the lead, and she was horrid. I really didn't like her, and I've never liked her since, even though she votes Labour and does good work, I've no doubt, in Hampstead. But goodness me, she was a pain to work with. And I remember I was sacked from that because I wouldn't take a pay cut, because I won't take pay cuts, so it's no good offering them to me. Do we get any money for this, by the way? I can't remember.
I have no idea. You'll have to talk to the. You'll have to talk to the BBC.
I'll find out afterwards. And I was offered Queen Christina by Pam Gems, and I did walk out of that because I couldn't stand the director, who was called Pam Brighton. She was horrid too. But most people are nice. It's just you've asked me about two people I couldn't bear, and I've told you.
In both these cases where you had the famous creative differences or professional clash, did you tell Glenda Jackson, for example?
Yes. I told her she was a cow.
And what did she say?
I can't remember, but she seemed to imply that I was something of an amateur. And she may well have been right about that. But there was certainly a frostiness.
Are you, in general, though, in productions on sets, are you quite a convivial figure?
Oh, very. I mean, you would expect that, wouldn't you? No, I'm adorable, basically. Yeah.
Do you feel an obligation or an instinct to? I mean, you've been in this business a long time, to give advice to younger actors.
Well, I don't know if I feel obliged to. If I think someone's going wrong, I might say something, but no, I don't feel obliged to. I find on the whole I learn from watching younger people. They've got so much energy and they're very good at being in the moment, and I think that's what we have to be as actors.
Can you still, at this stage, learn things about acting yourself?
Oh, my word, yes, of course I can. Oh, I'd be dead if I couldn't learn anything, yes. It's very important to be open to things, and I hope I am. I'd like to be. I'm a bit didactic sometimes, I'm sure. But no, I am open, yes, very much so.
One of the oddities in your list of credits, a huge amount of work for children, from Jack and Nori in 1968 up to the Harry Potter films more recently. And yet you've said that you don't really like children.
No, I don't like children. I don't like children much, but I would never hurt one, but I don't like them. No, I have worked with them quite a bit, and I just say, now, behave yourself, you see. And they do. So I don't have much trouble with them. But, if I'm visiting people and they've got children, I always ask them to be put somewhere else. I don't want to be bothered with them.
And the fact you've done so much work for children, it's that there are a lot of character roles in children's literature. I mean, Yes, there are. Well, I don't mind taking money for working with children, but... And I'd done Harry Potter, for example. I was surrounded with children then. And then, you make the best of it. You sort of make jokes and make them laugh. And they're all right then. But it's not my choice. I'd rather be with grown-ups. And one of the consequences of being in Harry Potter, which many actors have talked about, is being recognised in the street or going
I love that.
Do you?
Yes. It's lovely. Because people usually say nice things. In fact, nobody's ever said anything awful. Sometimes when I read these on the internet, blogs and Twitters or
tweets,
blogs, whatever it is, sometimes they say what a ghastly person Miriam Margolyes is and how arrogant and stupid. And that is, of course, distressing, however true. But when people meet me in the street, they often just kiss me or hug me or say, I love you, or you've made me laugh, and, really lovely things. And, of course, I love that. I love it because it's affirming and it's not what I do it for. I don't need it, but it's just a lovely little present as I'm walking along the street.
Although some of them must be children he recognised you from Harry Potter.
Oh, yes, a lot of them are children, and then I'm calm and pleasant with them. I'm not nasty to children, because that's absurd, but I just would not, I don't choose to be with children. But if they come up to me and say, can I have my photograph then of course I would say yes, with pleasure, and I do.
You say you don't do it to make people laugh, but I've always been interested in this, that when you're in a theatre particularly, and those huge laughs you get, I mean, it must be an extraordinary thrill for an actor to hear.
Oh, it's wonderful. Making people laugh it's like cream cakes. It's gorgeous. It's just the most heavenly thing, and it's always been like that ever since I was at school. I love to make people laugh, and I think it's partly because it's an absolute sign of contact. And what I want in my life is contact with people. That's what I need. I do need contact. And when you're up there on stage, the contact is partly the silence, which is a kind of contact, and also the laughter.
But I was going to say that the thing about comedy, which is what makes it rewarding but also frightening, is that you know whether it's worked. In a tragedy, there's the silence, there might be sobbing occasionally, but you don't know in the same way how the audience is responding.
Not in the same way, but you can feel it. You know if you're getting across, if the tragedy is getting across. You can feel that too. That's why I love theatre more than any other medium, because you can feel that, what I call the golden thread. You can feel it tugging between the audience and the stage, and it's very thrilling.
But there are also nights where the thread is broken or not there, presumably.
Yes, there are those nights, but I haven't had very many of them. I can't really recall, except in The White Devil. That was pretty bereft of golden threads. That was tatters, that was.
And you say you've said you don't do it just to make people laugh. Why do you do it? And why do you want to act?
So this is a kind of psychoanalytical discussion as well.
Well, parts of it are.
I can see that, yes.
I'm trying to get to why people do what they do.
I can't totally answer that, but truthfully, I think it's because I want contact. And I know that is an area where I can command it. And I can't command it in other ways in life. But when I'm on the stage, I can command.
Domination again, you see.
Yeah.
But there is, as you well know, there's a psychological theory that some people have about some actors that it's disguise as well. We've all met them, we won't name them. There are some actors who scarcely exist out of the role. I mean, they're just sort of husks and then they become something quite different on stage. You're clearly not like that, but it
Well, I hope I'm not a husk,
no, you're clearly not. But is there a pleasure in being able to be somebody else?
Yes, I think there is. I don't know how deep a pleasure it is. I'm not interested in disguise exactly, because I'm comfortable with who I am, but I'm fascinated by other people. And I think one of the jobs of being an actor or an actress is to show what it's like to be that person to the audience who might not know. And that's why, for example, Ralph Fiennes, when he was in Schindler's List and he played that hideous character, that was fascinating because we saw inside the mind of someone who was truly evil, and he made him understandable. And I'd like to do something as clever as that.
And that's another interesting area to me. That's why, notoriously, a lot of American actors will not play unsympathetic roles. I mean, that's why British actors get so much work in America. They will not play Nazis or even doctors with a malpractice suit. They want to be liked by the audience. But that's limiting for an actor, isn't it? If you have to be liked.
It's completely ridiculous. No, I think you should never just want to be liked. That's pathetic. I mean, I want to be liked as a person, but I don't want to be liked as an actress or as a character. That's you need therapy then.
Going back to childhood, a child you did presumably like, the young Miriam Margolyes. Do you generally have positive memories of childhood?
Yes, I do. I had a wonderful childhood. And I was born and brought up in Oxford. And I went to the Oxford High School, which is the best school in the world.
And clearly teaches enunciation.
Yes, it probably did.
Yeah.
But I loved it, and I had wonderful friends there, and they're still my friends now. We have a group from my form at school, and we have reunions, and I'm still in touch with them, and they're very important in my life. I'm very good at friendship. That's one of my best things.
And you went back and opened the new building there, didn't you?
I did. Yes, it was the most enormous joy to me. Well, what really happened was that Maggie Smith went to the same school, Oxford High School. And when they were having a studio space named, they wanted to name it after Maggie, of course. So the headmistress asked me, would I ask Maggie? Would she come back and open the building and, do the stuff? And so I asked Maggie, whom I know from Harry Potter, and darling, I don't want to do that. Don't you do it. I didn't ever like the school anyway. So I went back and I had to say, look, she doesn't want to do it.
Did you tell them that she didn't like the school?
Yes. Well, you have to tell the truth, don't you?
So they must have been a bit hurt, were they?
Well, Well, it's too late to be hurt because it was years ago. But then they said, well, would you like to, you see? Which, of course, I desperately wanted to. And I had the most wonderful day, and it was a real thrill because I opened the new buildings, and the whole school were there in the auditorium, and I gave a speech, and I went round the building. It was thrilling. And then I went to see the Miriam Margolyes studio, which is there in my school. And I don't think I've had a happier day. It was absolutely wonderful. So I was really pleased that Maggie didn't do it, because I got to.
And were there black and white photographs of you in the lacrosse team and all that kind of stuff around the walls?
Not in the lacrosse team. I was never a sporty girl, you know, never. No, I was all right on the hockey pitch because I used to make people laugh so much they let me dribble past them. There were black and white photographs of various things and school plays and so on. But it was a wonderful school, and it gave me my love of English literature, which has informed my whole life. And I'm very grateful to the school. And yes, it was snobbish. There's no doubt about that. There was Town and Gown, and Vera Stack, who was the headmistress of the time, was a great headmistress. She'd been, I think, the English tutor at the Holloway jail, and she used some of the same methods on us, I think. But and she adored anybody who was at the university. She was a bit of a snob, and we weren't at the universities. We were Town, not Gown. But it was a terrific school nonetheless, and it's given me wonderful friends that I love now. And so I'm very grateful to it. And it started me off with words, and words are my business. I love words. And so that was where it started at Oxford.
And presumably when you were there, well, Maggie Smith wouldn't have become Maggie Smith by then, presumably. She wouldn't have been famous. But did you know that she had gone to the school before you?
I knew not at the time, because I think she's about 7 years older than me, and that's quite a big gap when you're little. It isn't so much now. But when you're little, I didn't know who was above me at school. So she wasn't known then, but she very soon became known. And I've always known that she was at school. You know, after that, I knew. And she's one of the ornaments of our profession. And I love her. She's dreadful sometimes. I mean, not dreadful as an actress, just
mischievous.
Yeah, I'll say, but thrilling. She's thrilling, and she's mostly right about the things she says. So, I was just grateful that she didn't stand in the way of my being at my opening my new school buildings.
It just strikes me, that's another division between performers. Some people muck around on stage and muck around on film sets. Others insist you have to take it very, very seriously and you mustn't do that. Where are you on that spectrum?
I don't think you should muck around on stage because people have paid to come and see you. So I think it's quite wrong to do that. And I'm sure I have done it in my life, but I don't think it's right. But I think afterwards you can muck around as much as you like. And I know on film sets I've mucked around, but not when the camera was on me or to upset somebody else. But I remember mooning at Warren Beatty in Reds, showing him my bottom because I was cross with him.
And what was his response?
I think it was laughter, probably. Well, when somebody shows a bottom isn't like a front bottom. You know, if you show a front bottom, it's a bit yucky. But if you show a back bottom, it's funny. I don't know why, but it is. And
very English as well.
Yes, probably. I must check my bottom. I don't know whether it's that English, but I'll check.
And clearly a decent acting tradition at your school because Maggie Smith and then you. Was it taken seriously there, acting?
When we were doing the school play, it was taken seriously, but I think that it wasn't regarded as a proper job. And I remember both at school and at Cambridge, where I went to university afterwards, that it was considered I was doing too much extracurricular stuff and that if I didn't stop, I would have my exhibition taken away or I would, be gated in some way.
Because at that time, there was a lot of snobbery about actresses. It was virtually synonymous for a lot of people with prostitute, wasn't it? I mean, it was seen as a disreputable profession.
I don't think it was quite that bad, actually. I mean, probably years before, but in the 50s and 60s, I don't think we were considered prostitutes. We probably should have been considered prostitutes.
No, I've talked to some actresses of your generation whose parents were horrified when they said they're going to become actresses, because it seemed they thought it was not a proper thing to do.
Well, for many years, I'm sure that was the case. My mother wanted to be an actress and wanted me to be. My father did not. I don't think he thought it was like being a prostitute, but he thought it was insecure. And, of course, he was quite right about that. But they never stopped me.
See, your parents, your father was a doctor. Your mother, which was quite unusual for the time, she was a property developer. She's always described as such.
What she did, she wasn't a developer. What she did was she bought houses and rented them to students, which was a very sensible thing in Oxford, because there's no shortage of students and there was a great shortage of accommodation. And we had some very remarkable people as our tenants. We had Ken Loach and Francis Hope, who was killed in the car in the plane crash. Yeah.
And he was a journalist. Yeah.
And Paul Betchman, who was the son of John Betchman, and Lord Rothschild, who my parents wanted me to marry, of course. I think the thought probably appalled him, this fat schoolgirl leering at him, ghastly. We had a very remarkable list of tenants, but she wasn't a developer. She was just a hard-working, shrewd woman who made quite a lot of money and worked bloody hard.
Although it's interesting that, because certainly at that time, a lot of women didn't work, but your mother in that way, she was unusual. She
was unusual. She left school at 14. She went to work in a hat shop, which was owned by her mother. And her father, my grandfather, was a second-hand furniture dealer. So she was always very good at furniture. And the most exciting thing that we ever did together was to go to Harrods auctions on a Thursday in London. And I would watch her bidding for tables and cupboards and chairs and things. It was thrilling, and I've always loved it ever since. I loved that programme, going for a song and Cash in the Attic and all those kind of things.
Antiques Roadshow.
Yeah, love it.
And GPs, doctors then, I mean, indeed now, were wealthy members of the community. So it was quite a well-heeled upbringing, was it?
I think it was comfortable. You see, my father only was remunerated by the National Health Service from 1948. So all the years from 1929, when he graduated from Glasgow, and till were not counted in pension. So he never made any money, and he was in single-handed practice, which doesn't give you much money. And he was a Jew in Oxford, and Oxford's a very anti-Semitic place. It's a snobbish anti-Semitic place, and people there during the war were horrid. They may have changed. The school was lovely, but the people around, anti-Semites, all of them.
Now, I was very interested in this because growing up, a family of Jewish immigrants, you were conceived and born during the Second World War.
How did you know when I was conceived? I suppose
it's 9 months before you were born.
Yes, that's true.
So it can be worked out mathematically.
I was conceived during an air raid.
Wow,
my mother told me that, yes.
That's fascinating.
Well, it is quite. I think it accounts for the curly hair, actually.
But more seriously, though, because a Jewish immigrant family growing up after the Second World War, presumably the Second World War had a particular weight, did it, in your family?
Yes, it did. When you say immigrant, I have to be a little bit prissy here. My parents were both born in England. We were Jews, and they were bombed out from London, and they came to Oxford to find a haven from the bombing. And I was always conscious of the war, and I still am. It's like a scar across all our lives, all of us who were born in that time. I was born in 1941, and so my awareness of the war has grown as I've got older, of course. I didn't really know about it then. I remember VE Day because I remember my mother made sandwiches for the bus crews, and we stood out in the street in Banbury Road, and I was handed up to the cabin of the bus with sandwiches and tea. It was a lovely memory.
And were you conscious at the time of anti-Semitism, or is that something that you've read into the event subsequently?
I was conscious of it only twice. Once was when we were having a picnic in a field somewhere in Oxfordshire, and the farmer came out and said, "Get off my land, you people." I remember that, and my parents got off, of course, immediately, but it was a subduing moment.
And you understood what he meant?
I didn't then, but my parents told me. And once at school, I remember a girl said, "You killed Christ." And I said, I didn't. And she said, "Yes, you did." And I went home and told my parents, and they visited Miss Stack. And no doubt words were exchanged. I don't think she was an anti-Semite, but, look, everybody is. Nobody likes Jews. It's just the truth.
That true?
Of course it's true. If you're honest, you'll admit it. You don't like Jews, but sometimes I can't blame you sometimes.
Well, I wouldn't admit that, in fact, but why do you think that is the case?
Because it is. Because all the literature goes to prove it, and the things people say. That's why the terrible way that Israel is behaving is just giving weight to people who want to be able to say ghastly things about Jews. It's just something we have to live with, and we shouldn't have to, but at the moment I think we are living with it.
But that's another issue which we should talk about, that you've had the paradox of being accused of anti-Semitism by some Jewish people, because you are one of those people in the Jewish community who support the Palestinian cause. Was that decision, has that caused you torment, that decision?
Torment, I think, would be too harsh a word. It has made me very unhappy, because I know that I'm seen as a betrayer of my people, and that makes me very sad, because I think it is they who are betraying the ideals of the Jewish faith. I've lost my faith. I don't believe in God anymore, and I think that religion is a waste of time. But broadly speaking, I suppose I'm a humanist, but I have to accept that people see me in the Jewish community, they see me as a betrayer. They are wrong. I am not a betrayer. I am upholding what I believe with all my soul to be the right opinion, the right attitude, which is that people must be treated as people. Would I like terrorists to stop? Of course I would. I don't support terrorism in any way at all, but I understand why it's happened.
The chief rabbi made an interesting distinction in a row he had with Richard Dawkins, where he said there are Jewish atheists and Christian atheists, which I thought was quite fascinating. In that sense, presumably you are a Jewish humanist. Is that what you would say you were?
Yes, I think I'll accept those labels, yes.
Because you can't, even once you've lost your religious faith, and indeed it's a huge issue, you can't ever reject the whole thing.
No, and I never would want to. I'm extremely proud of my Jewish background. It's very important to me, more important than anything, probably. And that is why I feel so profoundly ashamed when fellow Jews behave with such shocking stupidity and cruelty to another group of people who, by the way, were not responsible for the Holocaust in any way at all.
What about, this is another issue here, specifically Jewish casting, which sometimes you are specifically cast to play Jewish roles. Is that something that you think about? Does it concern you, or is it an issue ever?
No, I don't think so. I think I would be annoyed if I was described as just a Jewish actress, which would imply that I wasn't able to play anything that wasn't Jewish. I hope I've demonstrated clearly that I can. But to play Jewish parts, of course, I should be cast, because I do it very well.
So it's just your confidence again, but that's good, yes.
Well, do you think it's misplaced confidence?
I don't think it's misplaced at all. I think you are. It's just there is a tradition of people being self-deprecating and saying, "Oh, I just turn up and I give a turn," and that kind of thing.
I don't think I'm self-deprecating. I'm self-deprecating about my looks, but I'm not about my talent. I honour it too much. I'm grateful for it. I respect it, my talent. So I'm not going to be ashamed of it or apologise for it in any way, nor for my confidence in it. If it is misplaced, I must be told. If it is not misplaced, I shall continue.
Your fantastically distinctive voice, which we've spoken about, did you have elocution lessons at school?
I did, actually. My parents wanted me to speak perfectly, and you have to admit, I do.
You do.
But I went to a wonderful lady called Miss Plowman, and she taught me about diphthongs and things like that, which I've completely forgotten what they are. But I think it helped me to be very, very clear. And I believe that it's very important to speak clearly. And I do.
And did you take acting seriously at school? I mean, did you ever think of it as something that... Did you feel you were good at it?
I loved it. I loved doing it. I don't know that I thought I was particularly good at it then, but I liked showing off. And I think acting is a kind of, hopefully, disciplined showing off.
The other thing that famously, traditionally happens in adolescence is sexual feelings and experimentation and all that. Were you confused sexually, or did you always know where you stood?
I don't think I've ever been confused sexually. Sex has never been a problem for me. It's only a problem if you have to hide it. And I didn't hide. I'm gay, and I was gay, I suppose, when I was 3. I think I had an orgasm. I think it was an orgasm. It certainly was rather nice. When I went past one of my teacher's houses and I had a crush on her. And I remember feeling most peculiar, but it was nice. So I didn't talk about being gay when I was in America because they really can't handle it there. You know, they get very nervous. We're much better here.
Even now?
I'm talking about now. Yes, absolutely.
Which is why there are virtually no gay or lesbian actors officially in America, are there?
There's very few, very few. I mean, we all know who they are, but I wouldn't dream of outing them on television because I think that's mean. But no, I don't think sex has ever been a problem for me. And I've been very fortunate because I have found the person for my life, and I found her in 1968, and we have been together ever since. So I haven't been bobbing about in a sea of lust. Well, not so as you'd notice, anyway.
Although your partner, who we won't talk about, because as people used to do on the Pools coupon, she's put a cross on the coupon for no publicity, hasn't she?
Yes, and I think that's fair enough, because her life is her life. But the truth is that life is sweeter shared, and I have been very blessed to find someone to share it with. And I therefore, I'm not desperately looking. And there was a time when I was not faithful, but I have been faithful for many, many years, and I will continue to be so.
An interview you gave led to one of the more striking tabloid headlines. My lesbian confession led to mother's stroke, says Harry Potter star.
They got it all in there, didn't they?
They certainly did.
What paper was that?
I'm fairly sure it was the Daily Mail, but it
probably was. It's a ghastly paper.
Was that literally the case?
I believe that it was. I hope it wasn't, because it's a terrible guilt to have. But it's the reason that I say that people shouldn't come out as homosexual to somebody who cannot deal with it, because it's an indulgence. Now, Ian McKellen, wonderful Ian, who's worked so hard to help people who are troubled by their sexuality, he disagrees with me profoundly, and I know that. But I think that you shouldn't tell people things they can't deal with. And I believe that my mother, who gave so much of herself for me, could not bear the fact that I was gay. And very shortly afterwards, she had a stroke. And I've always feared that I might have caused it. And her stroke was a very terrible thing, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody.
You were also an only child. Now, again, some people glory in that, and other people resent it and invent brothers and sisters out of plasticine or all that kind of thing. You were a happy only child.
Yes, I think I was. I certainly would have liked brothers and sisters. And I think it's hard when you're looking after your elderly parents, if it's just you. But look, that's how it was, so I didn't know any different.
The other thing about coming out, I think Ian McKellen has quite clearly said that he believes he became a better actor once he came out, and there is an implied rebuke to those actors who haven't. In this series, when I interviewed Graham Norton, he said something very striking on this. I said, didn't he feel lucky that he wasn't in the generation of TV presenters who had to pretend and hide it? And he said he wouldn't have gone into it if he had to hide it, because he didn't believe you could be a decent performer if you were hiding something so fundamental. Do you think that is the case?
Everybody's different. You can't generalise about something like that. I don't know. Graham is wonderful. He's an extraordinary and wonderfully happy and gifted person. And obviously for him it was important to be able to be gay. But I get a bit bored with people who can only be gay. No, I'm not just gay. I'm everything else as well. And I don't want people to say, oh, look, there's a lesbian as I walk down the street. I'd feel a bit uncomfortable about that. Now, I may be very gay. I don't know whether I am or not. I think that I'm just very Miriam, and that's what I would rather be.
You went, though, early in your acting career, you were part of Gay Sweatshop, which was part of the political mood of the times, and was very specifically stated. Did you ever think about, some actors did, about the career implications of identifying yourself as gay?
I don't think I did. I probably should have done. I remember wearing a gay lib badge in the BBC, and it was frowned on rather, and thought it was a bit exhibitionist, which I've no doubt it was. No, I don't think I've thought about my career in quite the way perhaps I should have done. It hasn't been so planned as perhaps I should have done, but you can't really plan a career. You just take what comes. And I've been very lucky with my agents, they're called United Agents, by the way. They're very good.
Although there is a point at which you have to decide to go into acting. Was that at Cambridge that happened?
I don't know that it was at Cambridge. It might have been after Cambridge. Cambridge was a wonderful, joyous explosion in my life. And I think it's where I became a person, really. And I met wonderful people who are still in my life. And I had tremendous opportunities there. But I don't think I really thought I was going to be an actress until I'd left Cambridge. And then I had nothing to do. I just left. And then I thought, well, what will I do? So I became an actress.
But it was at Cambridge you did more acting. You did comedy, crucially, as well.
No, I didn't do comedy, darling. No, I didn't. I did the Footlights Review.
Is that not comedy?
Well, I suppose it is, really.
It's generally regarded as comedy. Maybe you were in the non-comic year.
But that was more or less the only comedy I think I did. I did serious stuff apart from that. Maybe. No, I did some Noel Coward, that's true. I did some. I'm good at comedy, I think. I've got a knack for it. But I didn't follow in the light entertainment direction, which many of my colleagues in Footlights did, like Cleese and Chapman and so on. So I went a slightly different way.
But you were part of that generation, were you?
I was part of the Footlights Review of 1962. I was, yes. It was called Double Take, and it was directed by Trevor Nunn, who has never used me professionally. I wonder what that means.
Have you ever raised that with him?
Constantly.
What does he say?
He hugs me. He trevs me.
Which is known as being trevved.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he doesn't think I'm quite good enough. I don't know. Might be.
You must... it must have been discussed at some level, hasn't it? After all
well,
this time.
I haven't talked to him directly about it, but, maybe he will. Maybe he will one day. But maybe I'm difficult to cast. I don't know. It's possible.
The other crucial thing at Cambridge was an early TV appearance, University Challenge, you were in.
Yes, that was great fun. We won one and then we exited on the second round. And Bamber Gascoigne was the question master. And all the people who are still alive who were in the team, I still know.
And is it true that you swore during the recording?
Well, I did say the F word because I got a question wrong. And you would, wouldn't you? And there was a close-up of me, of my mouth enunciating. No sound, however, because Ken Tynan, I believe, was the first person to say the word with sound. But I merely went...
These days they pixelate it because they're worried about lip readers being offended as well. So they pixelate the mouth.
They're sensitive creatures.
They are very sensitive. An often cited early credit of yours is Sexy Sonia Leaves from My Schoolgirl Notebook.
You've been doing your research, haven't you, cheeky boy? Well, when I started in radio and somebody told me there was a job going, doing a porn tape, audio, not visual. So I went along and I recorded it, and it was very exhausting because you have to breathe a lot, and I got such a headache. But there is a tape, Sexy Sonia Leaves from My Schoolgirl Diary. I can't remember any of it, but there was a lot of heavy breathing and sort of that kind of stuff. Very tiresome.
Have you heard it subsequently?
I haven't heard it for many years. I don't sit at home and listen to past triumphs, no. But I believe it sold quite well and gave a lot of people a minimum amount of happiness, probably.
So what, looking back, what do you regard as the breakthrough roles early on?
I think probably The Girls of Slender Means.
I was going to come to that. 1975, adaptation of Muriel Spark novel, which I watched just yesterday.
Did you?
It stands up amazingly well, I think.
Isn't it good?
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah.
Good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
I've done it. The letter from Charles Morgan. George will have a fit when he sees that. It'll be worth about £50 to you on your contract.
Very good.
Yes, but I feel a bit guilty. I've had to ask Tilly to come to supper.
Oh, you better let me pay for a meal.
I didn't mean that. Would you like some coffee?
Thanks.
Oh, you've ruined it. I shall have to do it all over.
No. It makes it more authentic. Naturally, if I've received a letter from Charles Morgan telling me I'm a genius, I'm going to spend a lot of time reading it over. Of course, which is bound to get a bit warm. The only question is, you sure George would be impressed with Morgan's name?
Very.
You mean you're very sure that George would be very impressed?
I mean both.
It'd put me off if I were George.
Well, you're not. Neither am I. I'm nobody except myself. So there you are.
Have you watched it again?
No, I haven't. I don't watch my own stuff. It's better not, I think, because either you get depressed or you become smug. So I think it's better just to let other people watch it.
That's another divide
I certainly
between
shan't
performers.
watch this, I'll tell you.
Another significant film role we haven't mentioned, Age of Innocence, Edith Wharton adaptation. Now that was, again, you won an award for that. That, again, was a significant step.
Oh, yes, that was a wonderful experience. Martin Scorsese was the director, and there was a great assembly of talent, both British and American, in that particularly British, actually. I asked Mr. Scorsese why he wanted to do that novel. And he said, because I'm interested in brutality. And it is about brutality, only brutality in a rather exalted circle of people. But underneath the polish and the refinement, the knives are out. And that is wonderful, wonderful theatre, wonderful film, and I think better than people allowed it to be at the time.
What is he like as a director?
Intense, focused, crackling, nervy, and when he gives you a note, just focusing on you, talking to you quietly. He's not an extravagant director. He's a detailed director. And clearly, you know, one of the best in the world. I was thrilled to work for him. It was very scary meeting him, actually. I went to his house, and I was so desperate to get the job, you know, as sometimes you really do want to, and I didn't know how to convince him that I could do it. But somehow I did, and I was cast.
So
and,
did you read for him at his house?
No, we just talked.
Ah.
We just talked. And I think that the performance was made so good by the dialect coach, Tim Monick, who is an American dialect coach, a wonderful one. And he helped me to find the voice for that character, who was a very Tony New Yorker of the 1890s, 1870s. And I remember that the key was how to say the word pearl. It had to be elongated, pearl. And so I practiced doing that, and then I got the voice right.
So that's a really good example of what we talked about earlier, of getting to it through the voice.
Yes, because it was set in a very specific social milieu, it was very important to get that right. And he helped me to get that right. And so I feel that I owe my award at least to him as well as to myself.
The Harry Potter years, it's been called the Harry Potter pension scheme, and indeed Sir Derek Jacobi has publicly regretted that he was one of the few British actors not to be involved in the Harry Potter series. But it was, this huge cultural juggernaut, but presumably it was, apart from financially, it was a good thing to be involved in.
It was fun. I didn't feel quite so messianic about it as maybe some people do. I think it's a very good piece of work, and it was a thrill to be part of it. And I liked those children. They were very nice kids, those main three people. But did I feel it was special at the time? No, I didn't. I just thought it was a rather lovely job.
As I can say, you've recently passed the landmark of 70, which invites people to look back. Are you satisfied with what?
No, of course I'm not. Don't be bloody silly.
Some people are.
No, of course I'm not satisfied. I'm very unsatisfied, and that's how it should be. God, if I was satisfied, I'd be a complete fart. Satisfied.
What do you still want to do?
Everything. Lots of different things. I haven't got specific things. I want to do Long Day's Journey into Night and some Shakespeare and Mrs. Klein and goodness, Queen Margaret. Loads of things. Loads of things. Don't you dare say I'm satisfied.
Miriam Margolyes, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Coming up on BBC4, Ian Hislop goes off the rails as he unravels the repercussions of the Beeching Report. Next.